All right, y'all. The other day, I'm sitting in the morning, getting my thoughts together, doing a little prayer, doing a little meditation, and it was just on my heart. I had an individual on the show a while back, hadn't spoken to him in a while, and it was on my heart to maybe reconnect with him and see if he wanted to do more, maybe get back on the show. It was just on my heart to reconnect with him. And amazingly enough, maybe an hour and 15 minutes later, I looked down at my phone. Granted, this individual, we don't communicate often. We support each other on social, but we're not like communicating or texting often. This individual texts me like an hour and 15 minutes later, and just tells me, "Hey, man, you are on my heart this morning. God's with you. Have a great day." And I reached back out to him, just blown away, and it was just incredible timing, divine timing. And so I'm thrilled to welcome back to the show today an amazing man. He helps businesses grow and scale, and he's an award-winning business coach. He's written a couple books, most recently, The Makings of a Millionaire Mind, Building a Life of Abundance and Wealth. So go check this out. And we're going to talk a little bit about Sticker Shock Speaking Academy today. Thrilled to have back Daniel Gomez. Welcome to GLE, my friend.
Phil, brother, thank you for having me back. And I was in the air and I was like literally going there and God just put you on my heart and I sent you that message. And little did I know that you were thinking about me, but that's the way it works sometimes. Like people always ask me, Daniel, how do you do what you do? I said, it's not me. It's just I just listen to the spirit of God as God talks to me. And I'm honored to be back on your show. Just really so much has changed since the last time I was on your show. And it's amazing because it was probably maybe a year ago, but
Right.
that's I don't want to talk about growth, right? I want to talk about maturity because I think I've matured since the
Yeah.
last time I was on your show because so many times we use the word. I think for the personal growth industry, we're kind of in the same arena of business, right? Personal growth, development, and all that. And people use the word grow all the time. And well, yeah, you're growing in your skill set and your knowledge, but are you maturing in your character and are you maturing as a human being? And are you maturing as a speaker? And so many people, it's not the same thing.
Right.
And I think they get them mixed up and they kind of intertwine one with the other. And it's you have to have maturity in as a human being and as a person as you're growing. You also have to mature. And I've seen since the last time I was on your show, so many people that are growing and growing, but they don't mature and then they self sabotage and they self implode because they don't have the maturity that they should have.
Yeah, Daniel, you strike me as a peaceful guy. I don't know if that's an accurate description of you, but you seem like you're kind of at peace with the world. And you were talking about maturity, and it just made me think of this. So I'll go right into it. We'll dive deep early. You
Yeah,
know,
let's do
the
it.
Bible talks about the peace that surpasses all understanding. And when you talk about kind of going through growth and you go through hardships, and I recently posted, about the story of Joseph and all the things he went through in his life and how he had this dream that he was going to have all his family bow down to him. And then he went through all these hardships and ended up becoming, later in life after being in prison, after accused of rape falsely, after going through all these hardships, he ends up being second in command of Pharaoh and basically saving Israel and the whole world at the time from a terrible famine. You know, having peace along that journey is really tough. And I know for you a year ago, times have really changed up until now, and you've had some tremendous success in your business and your speaking and all the things you're doing. Can you kind of walk us through sort of your journey to kind of get to what I'll describe as peace? You described it as maturity, but what are some of the things mentally that you kind of had to work through, and when did you really kind of break through to that maturity that you're feeling now?
I think that so many times in our careers in life, in personal development, we attack the shallow things. And people talk a good story on social media, they talk a good story on podcasts. But I truly believe in my heart that they don't do the deeper. They don't do the deeper work. And that's where the maturity comes in because when you go deeper, it hurts a lot. And no one wants to go through this. There's the two processes you got to go through. You got to go through right? You have to go through the pruning. Everybody's aware of the pruning, but you got to purge. if you're not purging yourself of all the junk that's in you, and you're not pruning it out, it's like you're missing out. You're not doing yourself justice, because at some point you're gonna have to deal with that later, 6 months or 12 months. And I think for me, it was really letting go of deeper insecurities for me to know that I'm really okay with who I am. And what do I mean by that? We're talking about our good friend Tony Watley, and I told Tony we're having a call, and this is part of maturity. I said, I got to be honest with you, brother. I said, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I just feel this in my heart. I need to tell you this, because not so much for you, Tony, but for me. I said, Tony, there was a season, because I've known Tony for 5 years now, and he was one of my mentors and coaches, and really helped me in my first, like from day one, really. But there was a point in my career, probably like, I don't know, 3 years ago, where I was like jealous and envious of him. And I said, I just wanted you to know that, and I'm letting you know that because it wasn't right, but I had this. And he goes, well, thanks for telling me that. But you know what? Like the mature guy that Tony is, he goes, Daniel, I think we all go through that sometimes. But how often do you get two men that are both drivers, that are both that deep personality to talk at that level? It takes maturity. And I think that if you can have conversations like that, there's a deeper connection, a deeper opportunity for you as a speaker, as a coach, as a trainer, as a business owner, because now God says, I can trust Daniel with more. And something that you said before we started recording is, when you're faithful with the little, he'll make you ruler over more. But it takes the maturity, because if you can't handle $1,000, you're never going to become a millionaire, because you don't have the maturity to handle that.
Yeah. That goes to, you probably covered this in your book. I'm trying to remember if you did. Just the thought process of, okay, what would I do if I had $1 million today, or however much money? And most people probably have no idea what they would do with that money. Kind of to your point of, if you're a good steward with a little, you'll be given much. And, that's just one area, money. But you've been given a voice. You've been given a spirit and a soul and a mind and a body. And, how are you stewarding those things to maximize the gifts that you've been given? And I know before we get any further, you got to go follow Daniel Gomez. If you're not following him, go follow Daniel Gomez Inspires, and his website's www.danielgomezspeaker.com. He just recently started the Sticker Shock Speaking Academy. So I want to kind of dive into speaking and just, identity. And I think most people, Daniel, I was sitting next to a guy on an airplane recently, and he was really knowledgeable. And actually he has a multi-million-dollar stock portfolio, unless he lied to me, multi-million-dollar stock portfolio. And he's like in his early 40s, and probably, going to walk away from working a job here in the next couple of years, just because he likes doing trading, and he seems to be doing pretty well at it. But I asked him if he'd be willing to come on my podcast to talk a little bit about that. And he was very hesitant. He's like, nah, man, like, I don't, nobody wants to hear me talk. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, all I know is all this stuff. I'm like, man, most people in their 40s, like, you're probably in the top whatever percent of people financially. Right. And like, he was still thinking in his head, he didn't have anything worthwhile to share with the world that could help anybody. So talk a little bit about your speaking academy and kind of just mindset about putting yourself out there.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because actually I had a corporate training this morning, and we were there for a couple of hours, and I talked about that. And I don't know who this gentleman is, but one huge reason why maybe he was hesitant to come onto your show is because he undervalues himself. He undervalues himself as a human being. He undervalues himself overall, because maybe he has a success and right, his default, his shield is his stock portfolio, and behind that he's insecure and he doesn't value who he is. And that was me, and I can say that because that's when I was younger. I would say 15, 20 years ago, right? I would always lead with, I'm the number one. I'm a closing machine. I'm one of the top salesmen. I'm one of the top GSMs. I run a Chevrolet. When people lead with that, there's something going on inside of them. And I think
Right.
we've all experienced that. When somebody leads with that, it's like when no one's asking you, it's like, hey, how are you? So I say that because when people come to Sticker Shock, I always wonder, right? We started Sticker Shock Speaking Academy. We're going on our third year already, and it's been an amazing success. And this is a question that people ask me: is it really going to help me? And I said, the truth, it's up to you. We give you all the tools. We give you everything you need, not just to be a speaker, because most people fail because they want to be a speaker. And if you want to be a speaker, you're doing it for the wrong reasons, or you're not thinking big enough. And
Right.
what do I mean by that? Well, it's a different mindset from being a speaker to having a speaking business. And when you have a speaking business, it's a totally different, you're coming from a different totally mindset. And one of the huge ones is this: when you're a speaker, this was right. I had to learn this. This is growing pains that I've been through now, being a professional speaker. It's all I've done for the past 5 years. No other, right? No other income. I came out as a straight up motivational speaker. And it was about Daniel Gomez at first, right? It was Daniel was the star of the show. That's
Right.
being a speaker. That's being selfish. And I'm being honest, right? But that's who I was. And then God started dealing with my heart, like I said, going deeper. And it's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was being coached and mentored. And one of the things that came out is, what do you think is the answer? Well, Daniel's not the star of the show, it's the audience. That's the transition and starting to build a speaking business. And so many people, they want to, right? They want the light on them. They want the fame. They want this, but it's for the wrong reason. And next thing you know, they don't care about the audience they're engaging with. So that's the one thing I want to set the foundation on right now. Being a speaker is great. Being a speaker is the beginning, but it's not about you. It's not about Daniel going to Inspire. It's not about anybody out there listening to this. It's about who's the end user, who's your audience that you're speaking to. They're the star of the show. And when you start shifting that mindset and really seeing that, then you're like, now I can impact people and I can really change hearts. And because when you're right, when you're just a speaker, you're speaking to please you. And I'm just being right. You're speaking to speak. And I don't know what time I went and spoke, and man, I sucked. I bit it. And my videographer goes, dude, like you've been speaking for a while. And I think at the time, it was maybe like, I don't know, 8 months into what I was doing, maybe 6. It was in the beginning. And he goes, what happened? I was like, I don't know. Like I thought I did good. He goes, you did good, but you've done a lot better because it was about me.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I started maturing, I realized, well, I gotta improve as a speaker and improve my business. And then when I really started focusing on the audience and helping them, there was a huge shift that happened to me.
Mm-hmm. I love that, Daniel. That perspective shift is funny because just the other day I was listening to Ed Milet. I'm sure you're well familiar with Ed. I think I saw a picture of you with Ed the other day. Y'all were looking good, and I just I listen to Ed when he speaks, and he's got a great voice, and he enunciates really well, and you can hear him breathe. He takes these big, deep breaths in to really fill up with air before he speaks. And I'm just, you're reminding me of this as in like focusing on yourself as opposed to focusing on the person you're talking to and the message. Because I think for a long time, I'm starting to practice doing better at it. Even me just enunciating and taking deep breaths while I speak. It was like I was afraid to let people hear me breathe deep, or I was afraid I was going to spit on somebody. So I didn't speak out confidently and loudly. And I've been accused of mumbling my entire life and speaking at like this volume that, people interrupt me and I mumble and don't really have that confident sort of enunciation when I talk. So that, that's been something that's just, I've just kind of picked up on that recently after doing almost 100 podcast episodes. When I listen to myself, it's like, man, I need to enunciate more clearly, speak a little more boldly, and without really hearing yourself, you get feedback from others, but you don't know until you see yourself on the screen.
Well,
right?
First of all, congratulations on hitting 100 episodes. Dude, that's epic.
Yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close.
I don't know if you realize this, but most podcasts that start, they don't even make it to episode 10. Like, because we do podcast launching, that's part of our business also for this and helping speakers speak better.
Right.
That's why people say, well, I tried to start my own podcast and Apple denied me. I said, well, how many podcast episodes did you upload? They're like, what do you mean episodes? I just did one. They're not, iTunes is not going to approve you with one episode. You have to preload 5. That
Oh,
they
wow.
want to know that you're committed, and people don't realize that. So that fact that you're close to 100, congratulations, brother. That's epic.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. But I love you. You know, I love that perspective of focusing on the audience. And, you know, as your business grew and you kind of went through that, how did you overcome that? I don't know if did you call it complacency before? Or, you know, it sounded like maybe you've really made some strides recently in your heart and kind of work on Daniel Gomez and all the things you've been doing.
Well,
How did you overcome that?
for me, it was really just being honest with myself and asking God to help me.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a man, most men suppress their emotions. They cover, like, especially me being Mexican, right? I'm from San Antonio. We drink beer, barbecue, and whenever we get stressed out or something doesn't go our way, we drink beer, right? I mean, that's the answer. You know, it's you see it in these Bart Simpson cartoons. You see it all over TV.
Right,
It's like
right.
that's how you deal with stuff, and it's not healthy. So for me, it was really just healing myself from the inside out and asking God to heal me. And then once I ask Him to heal me, I got to do my part. And for me, it's really in the mornings I spend my time with God. I wake up. I'm a big believer that you have 20 minutes to really get something in your mind that's new, because that's when you're still in that theta stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I say my affirmations. I say I do my mirror work, and then I go into prayer immediately after that, which is with God. But I don't pray to where like I ask all these things. I'm like, God, I'm here. Like, download what I need or heal me what I need healing up from. And it's amazing when you open your heart to the healing, the pulsation, when the Holy Spirit, it transforms you. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you more patience, more kindness to yourself. And through that process, for not just a week, not just a month, but probably it took 2 years. And then talking about this stuff, right? Coming on podcasts and just talking about this heals you.
Right.
It allows me now, when I speak to audiences, like I had my biggest speaking engagement almost over just a year ago. And I shared the stage with John Maxwell, with Dave Meltzer and Jesse Eitzler. And then Daniel Gomez was number 5 in the lineup. And my assistant goes, dude, like, are you nervous? She's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, you're never nervous. I'm like, I know. I'm always the keynote speaker. I go, I've never followed John Maxwell. I'm going to be nervous. So we're there, and like, it was hard to believe because I don't really get nervous, right? I get butterflies and I put myself up, but I was really nervous that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, you don't understand. When I go speak for corporations or for AT&T or the United States Air Force, like, I'm the headliner. So it's like, usually it's just me by myself, but sometimes there might be another speaker. There's Max too, but usually it's just me. So it's easier. But when you're following John Maxwell, and then Jesse Eitzler put on the show that he put on, you're like, oh shit, like, what if I bite? Right? I mean, it's just these thoughts.
Right.
And I never forget, God just said, shut up, get on stage, and I'll do the rest. And I was like, okay. So it just gave me peace. That peace that I'm not trusting in myself. I'm trusting that when I get up there, you're going to download exactly what they need to hear. Mm-hmm. And as I get out there, I speak, and then, man, nobody knew me before I spoke, but we went back to our vendors table and we sold out of books that day. Wow. Literally, we had 2 books left over. And at that time, I hadn't finished my new book, The Makings of a Millionaire Mind. We just had a mock-up there at the conference just to kind of display it. Mm-hmm. And, we had some stuff to sell, but she goes, well, what are we going to sell then? I said, well, we can sell the course, and then we'll see who needs coaching. Mm-hmm. And then the idea came, I said, well, can you sell the book? She's like, what do you mean? Yeah, can you sell the book? Okay, pre-order the book. Can you sell some? By the end of the day, I hadn't finished the book. Yeah. Now, when we got back to San Antonio a couple of weeks later, I was committed to finishing the book because we had like 75 pre-orders, and the book wasn't even finished. That's awesome. But it was because the fact that I spoke from a place of serving people and really wanting to help them, mm-hmm. and not trusting in Daniel, but in God to move through me. Mm-hmm. And man, I'll tell you, after that, like, in a humble way, people knew who Daniel was because I just really spoke from a place of my heart, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been amazing. And I think when you speak from that place of your heart, really deeper, that's what we teach you when you come to Sticker Shock. We teach you just really how to build a speaking business, and how your voice really matters. But we show you the whole roadmap from beginning to end, the whole blueprint
Mm-hmm.
of, right, how do I market myself as a speaker? How
Right.
do I apply at these? Where do I find them at? Because there's hundreds and thousands of them out there. You just got to know where to find them at. And
Right.
this is where most people mess up. Because say, even if you know where they're at, how do I right? How do I engage with these people?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you put in an application and your application sucks, they know that, well, this guy's not a speaker because his application isn't up to par. So there's a way to apply to these opportunities. And then the second thing is, how do I negotiate through email conversations? Because a lot of them, they're not going to answer your phones because they want to see,
Right.
how do you interact on a professional level. So we give you, when I say when you come to Sticker Shock, we teach you everything. It's really to help you grow and become that speaker that owns a speaking business. That way, I would have never thought this, film. The first time I got a check for $2,000 for 1 hour of my time,
Mm-hmm.
I almost had a heart attack. Because I'm like, I told my wife, like, Marty, they just paid me a $2,000.
Yeah.
Like, wow, like
It's awesome.
for my time. And I didn't know how to receive that because we're not used, because we in our minds, we think $100 an hour is a lot. We think $20 an hour, like, dude, you made it. No. So it's a whole different level of revenue and income for a business. But
Mm-hmm.
as a human being, to see that you're worth that much, that people would pay you that,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. And we help people really embrace, not just embrace that identity of a speaker, but
Mm-hmm.
most people that come to Sticker Shock that don't do anything with it, they never embody the identity, Phil.
How old were you, Daniel, when you got that first check for speaking?
40, 44,
44 years old. I
44 years
I
old.
heard this recently. I don't know if it's true. So if it's not true, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to spread lies, but I heard it. I thought it was cool if it is true. Maxwell didn't do his first paid speaking gig till he was 47.
Wow. Yeah.
And now I think he gets paid maybe $500,000 for an hour or something, just insane.
I
Like one
think
of the
his
highest paid
honorariums,
speakers in the world.
yeah, he's the highest paid non-celebrity speaker.
Yeah.
That he is.
Absolutely incredible, right? And Daniel Gomez started his speaking career before John Maxwell. What do you know?
I received that. I received that.
Here you go, brother. Hey, so
Yeah.
you brought up something about speaking from the heart, and this is something I come from a musical family, as you can see from the guitars. I was always trained in my musical career to keep going. Don't lose the beat. No one's going to know if you mess up. You just keep going. Pretend it didn't happen. And when it comes to public speaking or like stand-up comedy, or, you know, where it's just you on a stage, there's no band, there's no other people playing, it's just you. It really has been a challenge for me to kind of transition from a performance-based mindset speaking to being able to speak from the heart. Because I wasn't, you know, I was used to like, okay, I practice this, I memorize this, I go spit it out. And it was very uncomfortable. It still is. I'm still working through it and I'm getting better every day. But just being able to just off the cuff speak from my heart and tell stories and just share my heart with people was very, you know, very different in like a public speaking setting. Did you go through that? Do your students go through that? What do you do to help people kind of get better at really just speaking from the heart when they're doing their public speaking?
Well, it's really understanding the person behind the speaker. What do I mean by that? There's four dominant personalities as human beings. We all possess a different one. For me, I'm an expressive personality, depending on which program or however they do it, right? I'm an expressive sapphire, to say. So I'm outgoing, right? I'm the life of the party.
Mm.
So I'm the type of speaker that is different from someone who is an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand, as a speaker, where are you speaking from, and who are you speaking to? So for me, people, like, for example, like a TEDx talk. For me, people say, well, when are you going to do your TEDx talk? I'm like, I'm not in a hurry because I don't practice my speeches. I don't, Of course, I have my points. I use them as like I did this morning in my presentation, but I never deliver the exact same speech every single time. And when you speak from your heart, it just comes out naturally. And it's not speaking from the cuff because right, I have a lot of content that I pull from, but it's really what does my audience need at that moment. So I generally have the same intro. I have a story or two that I have in mind, and the ending's usually always the same to say, right? The bookends are the same, but what comes up in between there for me, it's just really heartfelt. And it's learning how to read your audience, how to really connect with them. And some of that is getting there a day early to a conference and hanging out with realtors, or getting there, having lunch with the conference if it's a nonprofit, and find out what it is and talk to some of the people. So a lot of times, right, I imprompt, and we'll just say that I spoke to Phil in the audience, and I was talking to Phil, and man, I love the fact that Phil can be so transparent here at this event, and share with us that sometimes, right, you speak, singers mess up and they just sing on the cuff and they keep going, and we don't know that. So thank you, Phil, for sharing that. So I'll use stuff like that into my speech, and people can relate that because they're like, man, this guy knows Phil. Does that make sense?
Right.
And,
yeah.
And then when you imprompt that and you're able to have that capability, and you can learn it, it's a learnable skill to do. But most people, like I said, when you're on this side of wanting to be a speaker, all you care about is yourself, and
right.
It's not about that. So I think when you speak from the heart, that's one way. Well, when you're, say, not a speaker like me, you're more of an introvert, a factual person, then it's like, hey, you got to really be intentional on not being monotone, like you're saying. You gotta use some more voice inflection. So we give all the different, right? We give the 4 different personalities of speaker. We speak to that in the training at Sticker Shock, because we really want you to succeed. And because what we do there at Sticker Shock, we give you 3 things that every speaker needs, right? You come to Sticker Shock, but you're leaving with tangible items. You're leaving with a professional speaker reel. So if someone wants to try to go out there and record a speaker reel with high quality, it's going to run you at least about $3,000, give or take. And then we give you optics from stage, and you get all the B-roll you want with the red carpet. And then we give you a video testimonial. This year, we're bringing in Roger Wakefield, the world famous plumber. He's going to be our keynote speaker.
Wow.
And he's going to give us a video testimonial like, hey, we just heard Phil on stage. He was great, and he'll be honest. But a lot of times, these third-party validations from people of that magnitude, like Mr. Wakefield, Roger, will get you on a stage that maybe wouldn't have got you on. So you take all these tangible items, and it really helps you build that portfolio of a speaking business. And then this is a mistake that a lot of young speakers make, aspiring speakers. They're like, well, I got a speaker reel. I got it last month or last year.
Right.
Phil, you know how many speaker reels I have?
A bunch, probably.
Like I got like 6 or 7 quality highlight reels.
Yeah.
And I use different ones for different events.
Right.
Not the same reel is going to speak, right? I can't talk about business. I can't send you a business one if you want to talk about leadership, because it's not going to resonate. So I got to send a leadership speaker reel. So it's the lesson in this, what I'm talking about right now, is you can never have too many speaker reels. You can because it just shows a different dynamic of how you can speak and shift up and talk about different subjects.
That sounds like a pretty amazing program you got going on, Daniel, with the what is this? Sticker Shock Speaking Academy?
Sticker Shock Speaking Academy.
So is that at danielgomezspeaker.com, or where do people go to find that?
If they go to danielgomezspeaker.com, we have a tab there on the homepage where they can click and reserve their seat. And really, the beautiful thing about it is, it's one thing when I succeed, right, Phil? But when we have people like Tony Pollard to come. Tony Pollard came last September in 2021, and he wasn't going to come, but his publisher said, you need to go see Daniel. And he wasn't going to come because he had already gone to the NSA's conference. He goes, I'm good. And they said, no, you got to go spend the weekend with Daniel. He came, he gave us an amazing Google review. He said he learned tons of information that really helped him, applicable stuff. From last September to 2022 September, he made over $65,000 in speaking. He just called me 2 weeks ago. He goes, I called you before my wife. I'm like, what happened? He goes, bro, I just booked 2 $5,000 speaking gigs. He made $10,000 in one day. So why do I share this with you? Because the things that we teach you, the techniques, the strategies that we teach you, all the information that we give you at Sticker Shock, Like you can succeed, and that can be you. Because there was moments when Tony would doubt, but I said, dude, you got this, right? Just follow the process, use what we give you, and sure enough, he took off. That's one example. You got
So
Michelle
cool.
Hoskins, which came, and this was the biggest compliment that she gave us is because she still owned 5 McDonald's. I'm like, she goes, I learned a lot about business here. I said, in my mind, I'm thinking like, because she owned 5 McDonald's, and I'm expecting to learn from you over here. And she left. Within 2 weeks, she got a $5,000 speaking engagement on leadership because, right, she owned 5 McDonald's. She understood leadership, and we help you get the topics right. We help you orchestrate your speeches around what you're strong at, and that's what we teach you at Sticker Shock. So it's not just come on. It's not it's definitely not this, and nothing against anybody out there doing this, but it's definitely not a speaker competition because there's a lot of speaker competitions out there right now. It's definitely not a speaking program where we're giving it to you on paper and we're like, here, read this and you're going to become. You don't learn that way. We put you in front of a stage, right? I've invested thousands of dollars, not just in one stage, but we're going to unveil our new stage at this Sticker Shock, which costs thousands. We put you on a stage in front of people. We record you with live video, live media, and it's just the experience is surreal. Where you're like, man, and yes, some people choke, but the beautiful thing about it, since it's an academy, you get a second chance to come around. Okay, come on, let's get you back up there. And if you're not, if your speaking is terrible, we stop you. Okay, let me coach you through this. Yeah. So all this is real live coaching, speaking coaching at Sticker Shock, to where we really help you build that speaking brand, build that speaking business, to where you're going to be the next Tony Pollard, where you're making over 65,000 in one speaking engagement, right? And one day, 2 $5,000 gigs. Like, it happens. This stuff is real.
It's amazing. You know, I think it's such good advice for people that, and it took me a while to really understand this because of that music background where you're rehearsed and you're trying to do everything perfect. There's no such thing as perfect in this life. And even the best speakers I know get on stage, you know, professionals making tens and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? They get on stage and I guarantee when they leave the stage, they go, man, I wanted to say this way and I didn't quite do it the way I wanted. And they're like kicking themselves. There's no such thing as perfect in this world. So, you know, there's no practice life. We're in the game. We're all playing. Nobody's perfect. There's no such thing really as screwing it up, right? Yeah. You're just doing it. We're just living. And what will be, will be. What will be done, will be done. And there's nothing new under the sun. So,
yeah. And to your point, exactly. I was, like you said, I was just with Ed Milet at this conference. Dear friend of mine, Ken Justin, had put on an amazing event and had a chance to have lunch. We had lunch with them and talked to him. And then he spoke. To your point, exactly. He got on stage and, like, literally, he did, like, I call it the Columbo, right? He goes, you know, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but I really felt I need to say this. And he goes, I'm going to change my whole speech. What he was going to talk about, he threw it out the window, and he talked about something totally different, and he crushed it. But for him to have the faith in his abilities and to be honest, right, to be genuine, and he did it in front of a live audience, and I think you're right. There's no such thing as perfect. And if Ed Milet can pivot like that in front of us, and he's probably, I don't know what his honorarium is, but he's raking in about 75,000 a speaking engagement. And he'll tell you, he's pretty awesome. He goes, I don't make my living off of this. I'd be starving if this is all I made, right? Because it's just the business he has, but it's just the genuine heart he has. So if he can go on stage and really change his speech, we should be okay with that too.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, I want people to understand too, when you hear someone like a Daniel Gomez or an Ed Milet or a Tony Watley, you're hearing them. Yeah, they're getting paid for their time, I guess, during their talk, but they've spent hours and hours and hours where no one was looking, right? Nobody was watching. No, you know, they were working on themselves, going and doing that hard work. You mentioned it earlier, just going and taking care of the deep stuff, you know, really going through stuff to get your heart right, get your head right. And, you know, be comfortable exposing yourself, not literally, but, you know, exposing your heart and sharing things about yourself that can relate to people, and we know everyone goes through, but it's really that, it's kind of like a deep humility, and it can often be mistaken as pride, or people think you're cocky or arrogant, like, oh, who are you to want to go get on a stage? But I think to an Ed or a Tony or a Daniel, right? It's really it's that service mentality that you talked about earlier. And so I just want to highlight to people, don't think anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. You are capable, but don't think it won't take work. And you got to get real with yourself on the work that is required on yourself in order to prepare yourself to be able to really do those things you want to do. Am I way off with that, Daniel? Or what would you say to some of your students at the Speaking Academy?
It's about the reps. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the reps. And it's like working out. You can't expect, I always use this analogy when I talk about speaking and go, you can't expect to go to the gym. It's New Year's, you have your resolution, and you're not going to lose your 15, 20, 100 pounds, whatever it is, in one workout. Regardless if you stay on the treadmill all day, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be consistent in showing up to the gym day in, day out, week in, week out, whatever your routine is. Same thing with speaking. You can't expect to. I remember, man, true story. When I first started, my first video that I did, and it wasn't even a live video, it was just a video that we did for YouTube. I was practicing to do a 1-minute video. No joke. I think I went to a dealership because my friend, I said, man, I'm trying to get my sales gig going and training. He goes, well, come on. And he goes, bro, I didn't think you were going to be here all day. I'm like, me neither. All I got that whole day, I was there probably 5 hours. You know how much video I got recorded that I was happy with?
How
two
much?
1-minute clips. True story.
Right.
It's right, because it's different when you go live on Facebook, you're doing it live. It is what it is.
Right.
But when you're in front of the camera to try to record something that you're gonna use on your website, it's a
Right.
totally different
Do it again.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took me literally like 5 hours, and I think I got like 2 or 3 clips of 1 minute, and I was like,
Right.
I was brain tired. And it's like, dude, you're gonna because I thought you were just gonna use the office for a little bit. I was like, me too, man.
Yeah.
But it just shows how far I've come because that's where I started. And then I never forget this. One day we had a video on YouTube, and a good friend of mine goes, dude, that's you? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I wouldn't have hired you. I go, bro, I wouldn't have hired myself at that moment. But it just, we all got to start somewhere. And it's like the great Zig Ziglar said, you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to start right away and crush it. And it's a progression of how much time you put into it. And I can promise you, when you come to Sticker Shop, you truly, it's an investment in yourself, right? Because it's not $100. It's an investment in you. Where you come, we give you all the tools. But imagine that. Imagine Tony Pollard came, he invested a couple of thousand to get his, and now he's made over 65,000 on the back end. I think I would.
Crazy.
I think I would give somebody 4,000 or 5,000 and to make 100,000. I'll take that deal any day.
Sure. Seems like a pretty good ROI. You brought to mind something that my parents really blessed me with is, people all my life have told me, man, you're a really good speaker. You're really good at speaking. And you got a great voice. That I don't know if I did anything with that, or that's just naturally how I was born. But my mom, when I was a child, made me do speaking competitions. So I would have to memorize long poetry, books of the, chapters of the Bible, the Declaration of Independence, Gettysburg Address, stuff like that. And I would get up in front of people and recite those and, do it kind of dynamically. Right.
Yeah.
Again, very rehearsed, but you see kids like, I don't know if you follow Grant Cardone, but I love how he brings his children up on stage with him at like 10X Growth Con. And I've got other mentors at their entrepreneur events that, he's got 6 kids and he brings like all 6 of his kids up in front of a room of hundreds of people and makes them speak and talk about from their heart about like their favorite Bible verse or, what's going on and how they're applying it to their life. Right. And it's something we parents, I know I'm a fairly new dad at having a 2-year-old, But one of the most important things we can do as parents is instill good habits in our children and expose them to things, expose them to good things, hard things that really are going to set them up for success down the road, right?
Well, I would say this. I wouldn't use the word expose. You got to let them experience it.
Introduce.
Experience it. It's an experience.
Yeah.
You have to.
I like that.
The way we grow, right? The way we grow, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
We have to experience the new. And what the child is doing is they're experiencing something new.
Mm-hmm.
And like my wife, she hated it. She goes, I'm not. For the last 5 years, I've heard my wife say, "I'm not you. I'm not you." Well, what does that mean? I'm not a speaker. Okay, great. Without me, right? As much as I try to like push her along to become the speaker,
yeah.
the more I gently nudged her or pushed her into the middle, nothing.
Yeah.
We just had our Millionaire Mind boot camp in November.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even have to tell her. She took the mic away and she was speaking. I'm like, but what's the lesson in that?
Mm-hmm.
If you hang around enough speakers and events and you put yourself in that arena, that same anointing, that same shock rubs off on you, and you start to believe it until where you finally jump. And that's what your friend's doing. He's giving his children the experiences, and they don't even realize that these experiences are going to help them down the road when they're in corporate America or they're applying for this job. They're not going to be like, they're not going to freeze. Because I've seen, believe me, I was just at an event in Philadelphia where like somebody froze bad, and it was your time to shine, but because you hadn't put in your reps, you hadn't put into practice like everything that we teach you at Sticker Shock, you lose your opportunity. And sometimes the truth is sometimes some opportunities only come along once in a lifetime. And you're 100%. Not ready. And you have to be ready, and all these things and much more that we teach you at Sticker Shock. And it's really a place of coming from my experiences. And then we bring in people like Roger Wakefield, which is speaking all over the country, all over the world now too. And then other people that have different skill sets that I don't have, to really give you the full package of taking your speaking career, your speaking business to another level where, like we talked about it earlier, there's so many different ways to speak. What do I mean by that, right? Now I'm not scared to say if there's a local event and maybe somebody can't afford me and I can't charge them what I charge a corporation, but guess what? They've already done the energy to where they put an event together where there's 100 people and they're like, Daniel, I can't pay you this, but I can do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll go, right? But knowing, Phil, that in the back end, that people are going to hear my heart and they're going to want to work with me. And this happened to me when we went to Hawaii. They covered some of our expenses, but nothing near what I was wanting. It turned into almost a $30,000 payday. So you tell me, somebody paid for me to go to Hawaii. Yeah. I didn't have to. I mean, wouldn't you go? Hell yeah! And then because
why didn't you invite me, Daniel? I would have been there with you, man.
Yeah. And right off the bat, like as soon as that first day, people just connected. And I think initially that day one, it was a 3-day event, 3-day summit. I think the first day it was a $15,000 payday. And then
it's awesome.
Throughout the days and the dinner, man, I heard you on stage and I like this. And what are you thinking? Just people connect with, right? The reason you want to be a speaker is because this is a main key that people never speak about, and this is one of the main things we teach on Sticker Shock. When you speak from your heart, when you speak from your values, from your core values, if Phil has the same core values that I do, he's going to hear it in my message.
Right.
And that's what's going to draw Phil to want to work with Daniel or be interested in what Daniel has to offer.
I love that. Daniel, I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of you for doing something that most people aren't willing to do, especially if they're already, in the middle of their life. Lots of people kind of have this sunk cost fallacy mentality of it's too late for me to change or do something different or be that. And you've not only done that, but now your business is just taken off to a tremendous level, and you're helping who knows how many other people be inspired to do the same thing. It's really special. And so thanks for being an inspiration to us, brother.
No, well, thank you, man. And I want to, if you're listening to this and you have been tinkering with the idea, call me directly, right? I do have my project manager, but I'm on Phil's show, GLE community. call Daniel Gomez Inspires at 210-663-5954. That's 210-663-5954. And send me a text. Say, hey, I want to learn more about speaking. One thing, right? I am busy, but I'm not too arrogant to not respond to people who need help. And do I miss some messages here and there? Yeah, human. But the good thing is I always go back and we double check it and we follow up with you because that's just the person that I am. But I want your audience to understand that your voice matters. Your voice can grow and scale their business. And if you're hiding that voice, you're really being selfish because all you're thinking about is yourself. You're not thinking about the customers that need you, that are out there dying to hear your voice. Because this is the truth, Phil, is that Phil may be the only chapter that they'll ever read in a book. But if you've never put your voice out there in book form, in audio, they're never going to hear your story. They're never going to read your book. Right. Because you were thinking so much about yourself that you were that selfish that you never shared that story with somebody.
100%. And I'll take it one step further. This world needs leaders right now, and they need brave men and women who are willing to be real with people about what's going on and, you know, really just speak from their heart. And there's nothing worse than when you're sitting listening to people speak and you can tell they're just totally scripted or, you know, not being genuine or truthful or upfront about the reality of what's going on. And, you know, it could apply to politics, could apply to the, you know, what you see on the magic TV box, could apply to what you're seeing from your job or other places. But we need leaders to step up and be real and really share from the heart. And Daniel, I want to go back to one thing you said that really stuck with me is the environment and just the importance of putting yourself, your children in a good environment. Today, you know, government schools, things going on in the world, we've kind of given over our responsibility to these other entities. I'll call them entities because I'm not going to like point the finger at one person, but I'm pointing at us, at me. We've given over responsibility of our government, our schools, our education of our children to other people who may or may not, seems like they probably don't, have our best interest in mind. And so I just really encourage everybody and emphasize to you, if you're a parent, take a very purposeful, intentional look at the environment that you're putting your children in. Who are you allowing to pour into your children's mind, in their heart? Who are you getting them around in school, in their friends' circles, their friends' parents, family? You know, it's really, there's no thing that has more of an impact on an individual's outcomes in life more than the environment that they're in. So I think that one's so huge, Daniel. I'm honored to be in an environment where I can, you know, have a conversation with men like you and others in the GLE network. So, you know, I just think that's so important. Anything you'd like to add about just environment? Because I thought that was such a huge point you brought up.
Well, it's huge because we don't realize this is a mistake that we make, is that our children learn the model behaviors. We can try to teach them and train them all we want, and they're not going to get it. They're not going to catch it, right? Yes. Things are caught, not taught. And we're so busy trying to teach everybody everything, and they're not catching it. Right. So remember that little phrase, things are caught, not taught. Whatever they see you model in your daily walk, that's what they're, right? You can say all you want. You can tell your kid, well, don't be eating candy, and mom and dad are eating candy. Well, guess what? They're catching the fact that you're eating candy every day. So that's the habit they're going to develop. Right. And we don't realize that. And then we get mad at them. And then it's like, well, who do you think they learned it from? From you. And then if you get so busy where you're just giving your kid the phone or your toddler the phone, well, now your phone's teaching them. And guess what? Now you don't even have a relationship with your kid. And then we get mad, right? We do this in their toddler stage where they're really learning, being programmed and conditioned. And then as they become that young teenager and then that, right, going to that young adult, they've already been conditioned and lean on this more than you. And then you wonder why you're not in tune with your child. Right. And you just have to have that conversation. So it's just
so huge. So huge. Daniel, thank you for coming on the show. Before we go, I want to turn it over to you. I know you're a man of faith. Actually, you've inspired me to be better about praying with people, because every time we speak, you always end praying with me, and I love that. And I do pray. I'm a man of faith myself, but I don't often just pray with people after a phone conversation. But I love it. I'd like to pass it over to you. You don't have to pray necessarily, but I think it's a great opportunity for you to just share what's ever on your heart that you think the GLE network might need to hear today from Daniel Gomez.
Well, I would say this. I would say that you really want to open up your heart to what we talked about today. So much wisdom was passed on between me and Phil, and I would love to see you here in San Antonio, March 17th and 18th. Not because I want an attendee to come. It's not about that. It's about because I want to help you transform your life and realize how powerful of a message, how much potential you have hidden inside of you, that God wants to draw that out of you to inspire not just hundreds, but thousands of people in your community, in your neck of the woods. Because I promise you, when you come to Sticker Shock Speaking Academy, March 17th and 18th here in San Antonio, your life's going to be transformed because there's going to be an unlocking of your belief system like you never knew. And I want you to understand this. If God can take mold and turn stinky old mold into penicillin that's good for the body, what can God not do in your life if you open your heart to do it, to receive it? Because some of us think we're mold, we're washed out. But the truth is, when the grace of God comes over you, that he does over that mold and turns it into that healing penicillin, imagine what would happen if you allow your heart to heal. Because I allowed my heart to heal, and now it's amazing the person that I've become. So I really encourage you to share this episode with somebody, share this whole podcast with somebody, because Phil really cares about you to really talk about things that many people would avoid talking just to people please. And one thing I can tell you about Phil, he's not a people pleaser.
I appreciate it, Daniel. You know that's right, man. We got to keep it real here on GLE. I love you, brother. Thanks for coming on the show. Show only grows by word of mouth. So like Daniel said, please share the show. And as you go, lead everything.